Today we'll be talking about conscientious consumerism and how you can make a difference by voting with your wallet. So what is consumerism anyways? It's rooted in the belief that your well-being and your happiness will depend on how much you own, how much stuff you have. This notion was born during the Industrial Revolution, but especially in the 20th century when we started really becoming experts of mass production. If you think of like the assembly line model and all of that, manufacturers started becoming really good at producing. In fact, they even started overproducing, and that's when they had to come up with strategies to create more demand. So they did that by turning towards planned obsolescence and advertising to manipulate consumer spending. If you haven't heard of the term before, planned obsolescence is a sneaky strategy where companies and manufacturers will intentionally create products that will become obsolete or outdated quickly. They will do this by using poor quality materials so that they'll break quickly. They'll make sure that items aren't easily repairable, or they'll just make new design changes really quickly, so you constantly have to buy the newest thing. And Apple products are sort of like the most famous instance of planned obsolescence. A couple other interesting examples are, for example, the inability to refill an ink cartridge for a printer, short-lasting light bulbs, stuff like that. And then advertising, we all know what it is. And so this is very much the basis of our linear economy, where resources are extracted, products are made, consumers use these products, and then throw them away. But as we know, there is no away. Most waste ends up at landfills or incinerators in the US, or eventually as litter in the ocean or natural environment in general. So this is also referred to a cradle to grave system. It's extremely wasteful. The US is actually considered one of the most wasteful countries in the world. And we're also a hyper-consumerist country where our population makes up 5% or even less than 5% of the world population, and yet we use the most resources. As a reaction to this extreme waste was born the zero waste movement, where they were just rejecting this throwaway culture. Bea Johnson is the pioneer of this movement, and sort of like the most iconic thing that she did was she collected all of her trash over the course of the year, and it was able to fit in a single mason jar. So this may seem kind of extreme or whatever, but it was really just illustrating the fact that there's so much unnecessary stuff that we waste every single day, and that we can actually do a lot better quite easily. For example, the average American throws away 4.4 pounds of trash each day. So there's definitely things we can do to reduce our waste quite drastically without putting that much effort into it. But also, as I mentioned in my last presentation, zero waste doesn't mean you need to be absolutely perfect. It's just you're striving towards this goal of being zero waste. All right, so there's a lot of power that we hold as consumers. For example, say I switch to a reusable water bottle. Well, I will be eliminating preventing 167 plastic water bottles from entering the waste stream. That's huge. And that's the amount that Americans usually use per year. So you can see that simple swaps can make a huge difference. And on top of that, consumer demand drives trends, which in turn drives change, right? So businesses are constantly making adjustments according to consumer demand. So this has led to the conscious consumer movement, which we're currently in. And according to consumer trend reports, more than ever, people, especially Generation Z, which is the generation right under me, they are requesting transparency. They want to know who made the product. Was there any child labor? Was there anything unfair happening? And was there any environmental degradation at any point during the supply chain? People are requesting this information. And so more than ever, companies are being held accountable and have to innovate and do much better than what they've been doing. So with this, we're seeing a push towards a less linear system, and leaders in the sustainability space are pushing towards a circular economy where goods and services are designed to last and be repaired. Things can be redesigned, reused, and put back into the supply chain. Nothing is thrown away, and this is more of a cradle-to-cradle system. So how do we close this loop? Well, one great way is to shop at zero-waste stores. You guys are actually quite lucky because there are 2 awesome zero-waste stores in Miami, one in South Miami and one near Midtown. It's called Verde Market. They have 2 locations, and I highly recommend you check it out. Certain stores like Whole Foods too, they have a huge bulk aisle where you can bring your own jars and fill up what you need. And so always opt for reusable options over single-use options. Sometimes certain products are more expensive this way, some are cheaper this way, and some are the same as your regular like shelved product. So really take the time to explore these options and see what works for your budget and your lifestyle and everything. For example, like one super easy one is like you can fill up a huge jar of rice for cheap, and I mean that you can use that for months, you know. And lastly, a company I discovered fairly recently is called Plain Products on the bottom right hand corner, and they have a system where you can ship back your empty bottles and they'll refill it for you. Okay, so with this growing consumer awareness, it doesn't take long for corporations and other companies to sort of jump on the bandwagon and try to use this to their advantage or try to capitalize off of the like good intention of consumers. So for example, a couple of years ago, BP, which is an oil company, obviously British Beyond Petroleum, they came up with a like carbon footprint calculator where you can calculate and see how much carbon emissions you're contributing to the atmosphere, like how much climate change you're contributing to. However, this is extremely hypocritical and ridiculous because they are one of the biggest companies leading climate change, contributing to climate change. And they've also had over 100 oil spills, including one of the biggest oil spills in US history off the coast of Louisiana. That was Deepwater Horizon. Along the same vein, it's important to sort of see the big picture, which is that a few multinational corporations basically own almost every single brand. It's very hard to have like authentic change through these companies. And so that's when we oftentimes see greenwashing. And greenwashing is basically when companies are realizing that consumers want to be more eco-friendly, and so they'll just slap on a little eco label on there and like claim that they're eco-friendly, and they try to trick people. And it's honestly quite hard to distinguish sometimes. So beware of buzzwords and green imagery is all I have to say. Here are a few examples of trustworthy labels. Oftentimes you can see that like they refer back to an organization. So like Rainforest Alliance is an organization and they created this certification. I hope that with all of this new knowledge, you guys will be able to make a little bit more informed decisions, and don't be too hard on yourself. You know, if you can't tell the difference, or even if you start doing some research on a certain brand and you can't figure out whether or not they actually are sustainable, just do your best, keep a critical eye out, explore the options that work for you, shop small, shop local. Usually if you get to know who the manufacturer is, then the smaller the supply chain likely is, and so you will have a little bit more transparency as to where this product is coming from and who it's affecting. Pick quality over quantity. I feel like your guys' generation was already doing that before everything changed. And I also have put together a zero waste spreadsheet where I recommend a bunch of different zero waste products. So you can contribute to it if you've tried something that you really like, or you can just refer to it to have as a public resource.